So ladies and gentlemen, as with all these events, we could not have made tonight happen but for the fantastic help of the business community. The business community who raises their hand and says, we want to sponsor, we want to put our dollars to an event like this to make it special. And so I'd ask you to take a look at your program. They're all listed in the program tonight. But one of those sponsors who has showcased their support from the very beginning to include usage of this amazing facility tonight is our platinum sponsor, GDC Technics. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Dick Francie, acting CEO of GDC Technics, to come and say a few words to us.
Isn't Richard good? He does really good things. Hey, I want to thank you. You know, about 15 minutes ago, Richard said, I'm going to introduce you, and I said, wait, what? I said, no problem. In my past, I'm good. I can talk for about 2 or 3 hours with no issues. So settle in. Seriously, you know, Gore Design, now GDC Technics, came out of the Dee Howard Company. And we hold very dearly the name of Dee Howard. And we appreciate all of you being here and being part of this event. So thanks for coming, and enjoy yourself.
Thanks, Dick. We appreciate it, and thanks GDC Technics for their great help and continued sponsorship of this wonderful event. At this time, I'd like to introduce Mayor Ron Nirenberg. Mayor Nirenberg was elected mayor of the City of San Antonio in June 2017. He was first elected, though, to the San Antonio City Council in 2013. The former District 8 City Councilman has championed smart planning, economic development, sustainability, government accountability, and economic development. Mayor Nirenberg is committed to nurturing San Antonio's diverse economy, promoting its leadership on an international stage, and pursuing strategies that foster resilience so that all San Antonios can thrive. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming to the stage our Mayor, Ron Nirenberg.
Good evening. It is a true pleasure to be here in the San Antonio Aviation Aerospace Hall of Fame Awards Dinner. As tonight's theme illustrates, aviation is an extraordinarily important part of San Antonio's history. And thanks to many of you here today, it's not only a part of our history, it's part of our present day, and it's certainly part of our future. This is a power-packed crowd, military and civilian, and I want to be the first to say to General Pringle, thank you so much for your incredible leadership in this community of Joint Base San Antonio and this entire family that you've called home for the last few years. Your service has been stellar, like those who you followed, and we do look forward to your bright career ahead, and also to welcoming your successor, who I understand today is going to be General Laura Lenderman, who herself is an aviator. In fact, comes from an aviation family, daughter of Colonel Gordon Cook, a T-38 pilot, and I know we are welcoming the 5th generation trainer as well to the San Antonio community after 57 years of the T-38 service. And we look forward to the KC-135 pilot family of the Lendermans to San Antonio very soon. I also want to mention my colleagues in attendance who are very much champions of this community. Roberto Trevino, Ray Saldana, our Air Force veteran, John Courage, who are all here with us tonight. But I especially want to thank and acknowledge all of the students who are here tonight. And let's give them a round of applause. These students represent practically every local school district in every part of San Antonio. So students, I know you will find this evening inspiring, and I want you to know that we all find you very inspiring as well. You are the future of our city, and you will be the ones to inherit this great place. Those of you considering a career in aviation might be interested to know that our San Antonio Economic Development Department, our Economic Development Foundation, identifies aviation jobs in San Antonio among the best paying in the San Antonio area. The average aviation industry job across all sectors averages more than $60,000 a year. And I want to also take this opportunity to mention the Alamo Area Aerospace Academy, which is part of the Alamo Colleges. It's a great way to get started in aerospace, and you can Google more if you'd like. It's one of the key success points of this community. San Antonio's ties to aviation began when winter weather in Virginia sparked a decision to bring Army Aeroplane No. 1, built by the Wright brothers, to Fort Sam Houston in 1910. Some things never change. It's been snowing in Virginia all week, and while we've enjoyed this spectacular San Antonio sunshine and mild temperatures, it's been perfect days for flying. Army Aeroplane No. 1, historians report, it was also the first flight in San Antonio and the first plane crash in San Antonio. Later, Kelly Field was established, followed by Brooks about 100 years ago. And it was about 10 years later that one of tonight's Hall of Fame inductees, Edgar Gardner Tobin, came home to San Antonio as a hero for his service in World War I. There's more to come on Mr. Tobin and his successful aerial mapping adventures, but his legacy is a perfect example of the amazing, intricate fabric of San Antonio's history and how it was influenced by aviation. And by the way, we will be honoring that history and more as part of our Tricentennial's Commemorative Week, which is the first week in May. Military Appreciation Day will be May 6th, but we'll be honoring the military on May 5th and May 6th at Fort Sam Houston, and as we do here in San Antonio, honoring the military every single day of the year. I hope you'll join us as we celebrate our city's strong ties to the military. It will be truly a spectacular event. So congratulations, San Antonio Aviation and Aerospace Hall of Fame, for this successful evening. Looking forward to some brilliant stories, and my personal thanks to Wayne Fagan, a friend and legendary aviation attorney and keeper of the flame, for his hospitality and for allowing me to be part of tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate you joining us and your continued commitment to aerospace and all things good for San Antonio. Before we go on, I'd like to take a point of personal privilege and introduce a gentleman that needs no introduction. He's a friend to all, former mayor of San Antonio, an aviator himself, and he was our speaker last year, Phil Hardberger, former mayor of San Antonio. Phil, thank you for being here, and he's joined by his lovely wife, Linda. Linda, hey there. Good to see you. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, our community has seen a lot of change over the past few decades. Positive change, good change, change that enhances lives, provides jobs, makes things happen, and a lot of that change has sprung forth right from this place that we're in, and that is Port San Antonio. Port San Antonio has been driving our agenda in aerospace for many years and has a renewed focus on continuing to do that, and now including cybersecurity and a whole bunch of other great things. We're joined by several members of the board, and so I'll ask them to please stand and be recognized. And at the same time, I'll ask my good friend Bill Mock, who helped me run the chamber for about 20 years, to come on up and say a few words on behalf of the board. Bill, please join me in welcoming Bill Mock to the stage. He's on their board.
Richard, thank you for the kind introduction and for your service, not just as the MC tonight, but for your years of dedicated service to the community. I'm proud to have been a partner with you on many of those efforts, and I applaud you and the Chamber team for continuing to move the football forward as we all work to build together a world-class city. And Mayor Nuremberg, and to the many public officials who are with us this evening, you honor us by your presence at this great event. You inspire us with your energy and your vision. And we sincerely appreciate your shared commitments to make the Alamo City a world-class city for our people today and for the generations ahead. And to Wayne Fagan, to you and your team, and to our host this evening, GDC Technics, thank you for all you have done to create another great evening honoring our community's aviation and aerospace heroes. Here at the port, we like to think of our work as building futures. As all of you know, we are here today in the place that was once Kelly Air Force Base. This is the place where chapters in aviation history were written. Some of the world's best and first airmen trained here. And when Kelly became one of the U.S. military's largest aircraft maintenance centers, the land became an indelible part of our community's history. Right here, on nearly 2,000 acres that surround us, generations of military and civilian workers found good jobs. Those jobs helped them to reach the middle class. Those jobs were the keys to better life for themselves and for their children. Those generations built their futures here. This is the legacy of Kelly, and this is a spirit that moves us forward at Port San Antonio. Work hard, collaborate, innovate, and reach new levels of excellence. We take great pride as we honor that legacy, as we did in 2017 when we celebrated Kelly's first century. It is a concept of creating a place for building futures that inspires us as we move forward and work with our customers and partners to turn exciting opportunities around the world into real results, real innovations, and good jobs right here. It was more than 20 years since Kelly's closure was announced. In the words of our esteemed Senator Kay Bailey Hutchison, when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. So we San Antonians followed her good advice. We rolled up our sleeves and got to making lemonade. Today, that lemonade stand is over 80 companies and 12,000 employees strong. Today, that lemonade stand is an impact of over $5 billion a year on our economy. Today, that lemonade stand is on track to add hundreds of thousands of square feet of additional facilities this year alone. Today, that lemonade stand is working hard to add 5,000 jobs by 2020. Today, that lemonade stand is a center of excellence in aerospace, cybersecurity, advanced manufacturing, and global logistics. Right here on the former Kelly, great companies like GDC Technics, Boeing, Standard Aero, and dozens of others, they continue building the futures of their businesses. As a result, they are helping people and their families throughout the community build their futures, thanks to the great jobs that they have here. Frankly, there's too many people here to mention, to thank, but if you are a former Kelly worker, or if you are a family member of a former Kelly employee, or if you're working at here today at the port, would you stand a moment and let us recognize you? Former Kelly employees, families, thank you for all you do. And thank you to our partners at the city, the county, at the federal level, at the chambers, at the Economic Development Foundation, at our centers of education, and our industry partners. Thank you for being an essential part of the success story, with many more to come. We look forward to 99 years from today, when our kids, great-grandkids, celebrate Kelly's second century as they build their futures right here. And lastly, in closing, but certainly not least, I want to personally thank the team at Port San Antonio, and would especially like to acknowledge leaders past and present on our board of directors who helped steer the ship over the past 20 years. And I would like to ask board member Chris Alderetti, TJ Mays, Victor Lander to please stand, along with former board members Wayne Alexander, Glenn McTaggart, and former president and CEO of the port, Bruce Miller. Again, thanks to Wayne Fagan and his team for lending us the hangar, and thanks to Richard, and I hope everybody enjoys the night. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. So I just saw another elected official that I neglected to mention. I'd like to take a quick moment to recognize him. He is a member of the Alamo Community College District Board of Directors, and he stood up a moment ago as a former employee here, and now he is an elected leader doing great things at the Community College District. I'll ask him to please stand and join me in a round of applause. Joe Alderete. Joe, please stand and be recognized. Thank you for joining us. Good seeing you. All right, so lastly, I'd like to welcome to the stage a fantastic friend who is responsible for tonight's event. He has a passion for aviation, he has a passion for history, he has a passion for talent, and was at Dee Howard's side for a long time, getting things done and creating today now what we know as the Dee Howard Foundation. He's the co-founder and chair and responsible for tonight's event. Please join me in welcoming Wayne Fagan to the stage to give a few remarks.
Well, after all those great speeches, it reminds me of one of Dee's expressions, and that was that guy just lost a golden opportunity to keep his mouth shut. So, being mindful of Dee's advice always, I'll try and reduce my comments to things that you haven't heard. This is our third Hall of Fame dinner, but it's our third Hall of Fame dinner in 2 years. We had our first in March of 2016. Our second one in March of 2017, and our third one in March of 2018. When I was thinking back that, and this, by the way, this isn't about taking credit. This is about giving y'all credit. Because this event, this organization, was started because of a firm belief and conviction that there were great resources in San Antonio in aviation, and there were great organizations, and we had a great history. This is our tricentennial for the city, for 300 years, and 1/3 of those 300 years has included aviation. And those stories and the stories of the people that came before us and on whose shoulders we stand were not being told. And I felt we couldn't go forward unless we understood where we came from. And so we had a meeting with an event planner, a very distinguished event planner with far more experience in terms of events than I did. And so we talked about it. And they said, they're the experts, they said, well, you may have 150 people. And I said, at our first event, I said, I think that we'll do better than that. And it was at the Valero Hangar. They helped us get started. And, well, you may have 1 or 2 aircraft. So we had our first event in March of 2016, and we had at the Valero Hangar 480 people and 10 aircraft. So after that event, I was contacted by a few folks who said, that's a great event. San Antonio, though, won't be able to support that kind of event every year. It takes too much in terms of resources. And you ought to do it every other year. And also, you ought to do it in a hotel. It'll be easier for you to do, and they have catering. And I said, no, this is an aviation event, and what makes it unique is doing it in a hangar. And no, we're not going to do it every other year. We're going to do it once a year because there are other events around the country, great events. The Lone Star Flight Museum in Hewson has a terrific event every May. There's other events around the country in Denver and in Los Angeles and in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And they all are once a year, and people come to them. And we need to get this event on their calendars, get in their minds that, well, it's the end of March, it's time to go to San Antonio for the Aviation Hall of Fame. So GDC was gracious enough, and the port and the military was gracious enough to host us last year in 2017 in this facility. And last year we had 560 people. I said, I give up, I quit. You know, that's incredible. You know, how are we ever going to match that or surpass that? And this year, thanks to all of you, every single one of you, whether you're sponsors or individual ticket holders or guests or owners of the aircraft or the military, every single person in this room has in their own way contributed to the success of this event. It is not Wayne Fagan. What happened was, somewhere along the line, this switched from, well, this is a Wayne Fagan Dee Howard event to this is a community event. And when that switch went off, then things really started happening. Then the community came together, and you see it all here tonight. And so tonight we have, and I think this is really when we'll quit, I think Dick and I probably agree on that, not as far as not doing another event, but quit trying to promote it. We have tonight over 630 people in attendance. Because of you, each and every single one of you. You made this happen, you did this thing. And it's sort of, and I have sympathy for Richard, who every time he comes up here says, I forgot to mention somebody else. And so I'm not even going to try. But what I am want to tell you is, you've heard a lot of Dee Howard stories from me. But I want to tell you a Wayne Fagan story that you've never heard before. I'm not sure my wife has ever heard of it. And so here's the story. When I was around 5 and 6 years old, we were living in Lt.Col, Texas. And back then, the valley was quite different than today. And there was a lady that lived next door to us. And this lady made quilts in her home. And I just marveled at her taking these beautiful individual pieces of fabric and sewing them together in this beautiful, beautiful quilt. And that story reminded me of what we're doing at the Dee Howard Foundation with your support. Because each one of you have contributed your piece of fabric to this quilt that we are putting together for San Antonio. And once we told the history, you know, we're focused, Dee was focused on the future, we're focused on the future. That's what we're all about. But the future starts now. And Dee told me that, he said, Wayne, I spend about 50% of my time earning a living to take care of my family. And I spend the other 50% of my time in my shop inventing things for the future. So while we talk about the future, we believe the future is now, and we believe that the future is with all these kids that are out here in the community. So we established the Dee Howard Foundation Pre-K through 12 initiative to take the resources that are in this room, the aviation aerospace resources, and integrate them into the schools in San Antonio. So we started with one school, and we wanted to create a model program, and then once we got the kinks worked out, we could replicate that model in another school. So we started with Rhodes Middle School in SAISD. That was last year. One school in SAISD, Rhodes Middle School. This year, we have 2 middle schools, Rhodes Middle School and Brentwood Middle School in Edgewood. Next year, we will have 3 middle schools, those 2, plus J-STEM Academy in Judson, plus we will be starting our first 5th grade program at Sarah King Elementary in SAISD, and also we will be starting a high school program with Southwest ISD. So in 2 years, we've gone from one school to those schools, and the deal that I have with all the schools is that we're focused on your school, but we're going to take what we've learned from your school and replicate it throughout and other schools. So that program reminds me also of that lady that was putting together that quilt, because we want to take all of those pieces, put them together, and cover all of San Antonio. Now, to help us do that, we reach out with other partners. We're all volunteer, have no overhead, have no bricks and mortar, and focus all of our revenues on programming. So we're always looking for opportunities to work with other partners. And we were fortunate this year to be approached by the Tuskegee Airmen chapter in San Antonio. Lieutenant Colonel Rick Sinkfeld and his wife Carolyn are here, and we got together, we're friends, and we talked about it, and I'm pleased to announce that starting in a couple of days, I guess, in a couple of days, Tuskegee Airmen will be starting their program for students that will go through December. So in 2 years, we now have programs in place that cover all year long. And so to help honor the Tuskegee Airmen, we've made a grant to the Tuskegee Airmen chapter to help them with that program, and we've committed to them that we will make that grant every year to help them grow their program. So on behalf of the Tuskegee Airmen that are here, this is, in our small way, a way to recognize you for everything that you have done for us. And so we thank you for that. Now, the reason I'm putting on my glasses is because we have a special honor tonight, and that is that one of the Tuskegee Airmen who is with us, Mr. Theodore Johnson, I believe, somebody told me that Mr. Johnson has a birthday today. And Mr. Johnson is 94 years young. So I would like all of y'all, if you would, to join me in singing Mr. Johnson a happy birthday. And somebody other than me is going to have to take the lead, because we'll evacuate this place very quickly. Any takers? Start singing. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Mr. Johnson. Happy birthday to you. Woo! Thank you all. Enjoy the evening.
Thank you, Wayne. That was fantastic. We appreciate your hard work, your vision, all the things that you do every day. Your focus is indeed amazing, and we appreciate it. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a break. We're going to have our meal. But please know that these aircraft will be here for the rest of the night. For those of you that have not had an opportunity to go take a look, they're simply stunning. They're beautiful and really pieces of art. And so I'd encourage you, as time permits, to go out and take a look. And we will be back in probably about 20 minutes or so after the meals get served to continue with our program. Thanks again for joining us. To have a special guest join us tonight as our keynote speaker. Dr. Alan Stern is a planetary scientist, space program executive, aerospace consultant, and an author. He leads NASA's $880 million New Horizons mission, or he led it, that successfully explored the Pluto system and is still now exploring the Kuiper Belt, which is the farthest exploration in the history of humankind. Think about that. The farthest exploration in the history of humankind. In both 2007 and 2016, he was named to the Time Magazine 100 list. Since 2009, he has been an associate vice president and special assistant to the president at Southwest Research Institute. Ladies and gentlemen, prepare to be dazzled, and welcome to the podium, Dr. Alan Stern.
Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction. Wow, there are a lot of you. I am so honored and pleased to be invited to do this amazing event this evening. I can't even begin to tell you how much it means to me to be invited to this. And I want to say a big thank you to Wayne Fagan for inviting me. And I have to tell one little story. I had a little bit of a second thought about whether I should do this when Wayne told me that Adam Hamilton, the president of Southwest Research, would be in the front row. And here's why. Last time I gave a talk, a dinner talk, and Adam was in the front row, it ended up with me being asked to sing The Eyes of Texas in front of several hundred people. And it did not go well. Didn't go well for me, and it didn't go well for anyone in the audience. I'm not doing that tonight. But I also want to congratulate the award winners of this evening's awards. And I particularly want to congratulate Jim Burch, who I've known now for 25 years as a mentor, as my boss, as a friend, and as an amazing example of what a career in space science can be. And it really means a lot for me to be able to be here this evening when Jim is honored. Congratulations, Jim. Well, Wayne talked about the kids in the audience. I was really glad that he did that. You know, when I was a little boy, Apollo astronauts were landing on the moon, and it swept me off my feet for a career in aerospace and space exploration. It's all I ever remember that I wanted to do. And tonight I'm pleased to be able to talk to you just a little bit about something new in aerospace. Many of you, I'm sure, know about it. Some of you maybe not as much. I want to talk about commercial spaceflight. You know, when spaceflight began, when I was a child, it took nation states to pull off even satellite launches. And private spaceflight was science fiction. But beginning in the 1960s, a commercial spaceflight industry was born, beginning with communications satellites. And by the time we reached today, admittedly, 50 plus years later, we have a thriving commercial spaceflight industry that is revolutionizing the way that we do launches, driving prices down with reusable rockets. We have an amazing commercial remote sensing industry that is making ubiquitous remote sensing possible. for all kinds of purposes, borders, battlefields, and even for watching who's going in and out of each other's parking lots, big box stores. And of course, the communications industry is now flowering to the point that we're about to have low orbit communications fleets of satellites, thousands of satellites that will provide ubiquitous internet to everyone, everywhere in the world, no matter where you are. But the part of commercial spaceflight that I want to talk about is space tourism and the advent of commercial suborbital space travel. And I think to do that, I want to start at the very beginning, and this is pretty much the beginning. The Wright brothers, 1903, even a few years before the first airplane came to San Antonio. Airplanes and spaceflight are very different. Very quickly after the Wright brothers, as this second slide illustrates, commercial air transport was born. By the 1920s, individuals could buy tickets and fly on airplanes. They'd go cross country. It wasn't very much later before they were flying over oceans. Cargo was being transported. And by the time I was growing up, when airplanes like the 747 were coming online, anybody that wanted to fly could fly. But nothing like that took place in spaceflight, because it took these governments and nation states, and it was really only for astronauts. And that's what's changing. It took it a long time to change, much longer than it did in aviation. But beginning at the turn of the century, in the turn of the 21st century, there was something called the X Prize. You may have heard of it. It was a prize with a monetary purse of $10 million for the first private venture to fly to space at least twice in a period of a week with at least one person on board. And the team that won was financed by Paul Allen. And the spacecraft was developed by Burt Rutan, a legendary aerospace engineer. And they took that prize in 2004. And here they are on October 4th, 2004, at the time that they won. And if you look closely at that picture, you'll notice the fellow who's on the far right. That's Richard Branson, who was very impressed with this burgeoning industry and decided that the Virgin brand needed a space tourism line. And so he started something called Virgin Galactic, in which they would basically take the same two aircraft spacecraft combination and scale it up to be able to carry space tourists. So there'd be a carrier aircraft, a lot like the old X-15s were carried up into the stratosphere by B-52s, and then you drop the spacecraft and it would ignite its engines and fly to space on a brief suborbital trajectory with 6 tourists aboard and a flight crew of 2, give them a chance to see the Earth from space, give them a chance to experience weightlessness, and do things that only astronauts could. So they announced that they were going to do this in 2004. They said that the tickets would be about $250,000 apiece, which is a pretty penny, but not compared to the tens of millions that it cost to buy a ride on a Soyuz to be a space tourist on space station. So dramatically lowering the price point. And in fact, over time, Branson's Virgin Galactic, which now employs over 1,000 people and is building a whole line of these spacecraft, has produced the design, got the spacecraft built, got the carrier aircraft built, is out flying on test flights today, and their public stance is they expect to be flying tourists of over 700 have signed up by next year. Here's a powered flight. Whoops, there. Give you a chance to look at that. Powered flight of Spaceship 2, as it's called. Now, Branson isn't alone in this. He's got a competitor. He's got a number of competitors, in fact. This is a guy that started off selling books, Jeff Bezos, and started Amazon to do that, and now Amazon will sell you anything. And with his fortune, he started his own aerospace company called Blue Origin. And Blue Origin is a competitor to Virgin Galactic. But they're building a very different kind of system. Let me show it to you. It's a rocket with a capsule on top, not a pair of aircraft that come back down and land on a runway, but a rocket, like an old-style rocket ride, as if you were a Mercury or Gemini astronaut, that would take you up suborbitally to the same high altitudes, again, to experience the view of the Earth and weightlessness, and then come right back down and land. And by the way, just to make a connection to this dinner, you may not know that Jeff Bezos grew up in Texas. He wasn't born in Texas, but he grew up in Hewson. And in fact, this launch base that you see right here is out in West Texas. and pretty amazing enterprise that he's undertaken. This is the inside of the spacecraft, very large windows so that you can be impressed with the view. And what I thought I'd do is take just a minute and show you what this is really all about by showing a video, and the AV guys are going to put this video up next, and you'll have a chance to see these vehicles flying in action. So let's do that.
Separation. Apogee 333,000 feet. Engine restart, we have thrust. 1,000 feet. Landing gear deploying. Touchdown.
Well, that's pretty amazing. This is private industry in the 21st century building reusable human space tourism vehicles. And they're real, and that's why I wanted to show the video, because it's not view graphs. It's not something we're talking about. Like Virgin Galactic, Blue Origin expects to be flying paying customers next year. Now, that's such a fun business that I couldn't resist. I got involved in something myself. But it's a different kind of space tourism. It's a company called Worldview that's going to take tourists to the edge of space on balloon-borne vehicles, to altitudes where the sky is black and the Earth is curved. And of course, if you're flying on a balloon, you're not going to have zero gravity, but you're going to have that long experience. And as opposed to the rockets that go up to space and back in a matter of literally minutes, on our vehicle, you'll fly for hours at a time at a much lower price and without having to take all that training for high Gs. If you want to see me afterwards, I can help you buy a ticket. But I do want to tell you a little bit about it. Four of us started this company. It's one of those things started on a paper napkin back in 2011. We incubated it inside of an existing small aerospace firm in Tucson, Arizona, and we emerged as our own company in 2014. This is our headquarters in Tucson. It's just south of the airport, about 300,000 square feet of space for manufacturing, engineering, and flight operations. We have about 100 employees now. We've flown north of 50 flights, and we're building our tourist vehicle, which, because our flights are longer, give us the opportunity to let you really enjoy the experience. So we are the proud developers of the first spacecraft ever in history with a bar. I knew you'd like that. And I'll just show you a little bit about what we've been doing. There's a short 2-minute video now of Worldview. Well, as you may have gathered from that video, thank you. Thank you. In addition to tourism applications, there are dynamite research and education applications. Can you imagine teachers teaching from the edge of space, how that would inspire a school district and kids to STEM education? And the research applications for studying the upper atmosphere, for looking down at our Earth and up into the cosmos are just tremendous with these vehicles. And so to close this talk, I want to tell you about one particular way that San Antonio is becoming involved, and it's through the Southwest Research Institute. There we go. Through a very forward-looking program that Southwest has put in place that I lead to actually fly our scientists in space with our instruments to give us a competitive advantage, to be among the first. In fact, we are the first to have bought commercial space flights for the purpose of research. And we expect to be flying as early as next year. On those vehicles, we've selected 3 flyers, 3 scientists, myself, Dr. Dan Durda, and Dr. Kathy Olkin, who will be conducting biomedical, microgravity, and also planetary astronomy experiments from a number of these different vehicles. That would not be possible were it not for the forward-looking company that Southwest Research really is. We're in training. We've been flying on F-104 zero-G aircraft. We've been out in pressure suit and chamber runs. We're not having any fun at all. But what we're most looking forward to is to actually going to work in space, not as tourists, but as workers who are producing new research results at the very vanguard, the very forefront of this burgeoning new industry. And so San Antonio is a big part of it. And you should be very proud of that. I expect that some of the students in this room will be flying as a part of their research careers. I think many people here may want to fly as tourists or even maybe flying for other reasons in space. This is really as groundbreaking as the beginning of the airlines a century ago, back in the 1920s and 1930s. So we're on the verge of something big. I like to say that in suborbital spaceflight and commercial spaceflight, things are looking up, way up. Thank you very much for having me here this evening.
Thank you, Alan. That was fantastic. And I'll put this out there, just saying, generally it makes a lot of sense if you have a chamber president attend one of these things. It helps to kind of break the ice with all the politics and all that. You know what I'm talking about, Phil. Chamber president, think about it. Just think about it. If I could ask Dr. Adina Williams-Lawson and Wayne Fagan to come on up, we'd like to present you with a gift for your fantastic talk, and you really excited us. It's really, really interesting and cool and happening right here in San Antonio, Texas.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Well, Dr. Stern, mission accomplished. You were informative, insightful, and you certainly captivated our minds. Having been responsible and been the Chief Education Officer at NASA, I was looking at the children at table 27. I can tell you that they understand that the new learning laboratory is beyond the boundaries of the classroom. You've inspired and motivated, and you've encouraged the next generation of learners. Thank you so very much, and it is my privilege to present to you this special presentation from the private collection of Dee Howard and the Foundation. So I present to you this special gift. And appreciation for your participation during this induction ceremony. Did you come in? I think. Okay. Thanks. It's just the two of us? Yeah. Thank you for joining. No, we got it. Are you going to get a picture? I can do that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, will you hold it for you? Yeah. We'll come back again. Okay, great. Thanks again.
Another round of applause for Dr. Alan Stern. Thank you, Adina. Thank you for your help. So now I'd like to invite James Braswell, Director of Engineering RB211, Standard Aero, and chair of the Dee Howard Foundation STEM Education Excellence Award Selection Committee to present an award. James, come on up. Thanks. Good seeing you.
Well, thank you. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to represent the STEM Education Excellence Award Committee. Before we get into the description of what the award is and a little bit about the nominees and our award winner, I would like to introduce each one of my fellow committee members and just allow them to be recognized for the outstanding work that they've helped the organization and the foundation do over the last several months. So as I mention your name, would you please stand and be recognized? Marcella Burrell with KLRN. Joey Colleran with Redbird Flight. Is Joey here? No? Okay. Dr. Michael Fry with the University of Incarnate Word. Dan Gonzalez with Standard Arrow. Dr. Sean Kearney with Texas A&M San Antonio. Nikki McNish with San Antonio Works. Mr. Gavin Nichols with the San Antonio Area Foundation. Let's see, Gavin. Tyler Schroeder with Boeing. Tyler. And last but certainly not least, Ms. Natasha Wilkerson with Communities and Schools of San Antonio. Well, being a degreed engineer, I enjoy public speaking, but more importantly, since many of you, I'm sure, enjoy listening to engineers perform public speaking, I will not pass up Dee's opportunity to keep my mouth shut. So this will be brief, I promise. A little bit about our STEM award, our STEM Education Scholarship. This is the inaugural year for that award. And what it does is it's basically a $1,000 grant to the school of the awardee winner to be specifically allocated to STEM education, but more specifically to the aerospace and aviation components within that STEM program. So the goal is to foster the young minds and steer them towards an aerospace or aviation career path. I am a firm believer in the proverb of train up a child in the way they should go, and when they are older, they will not depart from it. So when you can teach them, get them passionate about things like what Dr. Stern presented, the history and the legacy of the aircraft we see behind us and out on the ramp, the history that Mr. Maurer spoke about for Kelly Field specifically, the history of aviation in San Antonio, and you can encourage them and foster that excitement for aviation in general. It's the best possible outcome for all of our future engineers, scientists, mechanics, pilots, anybody involved in and passionate about aviation. So this year's focus, because it's our first year, was on middle school programs. So a little bit about the program. The nomination packages were sent to 36 school districts and schools in this greater San Antonio area. Each of those principals, superintendents, STEM program leaders then nominated one educator within their organization. Our committee then took all of those packages and we whittled it down to 10 finalists. 3 of those finalists are with us tonight. I would like to introduce 2 of our finalists before we get to the award winner. But would Miss Anna Olgan from Longfellow Middle School please be recognized? And also with us tonight is Angela Pichardo from Bob Hope Elementary. So as I say, a lot of applications were received. We did have an extremely difficult challenge to boil it down to 10 just for the finalist application. But a little bit about what goes into that package. We looked for volume of students in the programs. We look for impact of the program in general. What is their vision for the future of their STEM program at their specific school? Things that they can directly implement, directly influence. For example, of the 10 finalists, they are directly influencing the lives of 2,000 future aviators or engineers or mechanics. Of those 2,000 students, over 40% of those students from last year's curriculum program in STEM have gone on to select a STEM application endorsement for their high school programs, which is an outstanding number, and it's just a small portion of the overall student population that's being educated for STEM in San Antonio. So it gives you an idea of the impact that these fabulous teachers and educators are providing to our young generations coming forward. So in inaugural year, first year is $1,000. We would like to grow that, hint, hint. But as Wayne mentioned, the scope of the organization, of the foundation in general, is exploding. It's growing exponentially year over year. This is the same type of program we envision following that same path. So keep that in mind for future years. But tonight we want to recognize the inaugural awardees winner. Mr. Randall Oman is a 6th grade STEM teacher for J-STEM Academy in Judson. He leads the SMART Lab and introduces students to the engineering building blocks, the basic engineering building blocks and applied technologies within that program. One of the things that attracted our committee to Mr. Oman was his, what he calls the make time approach to STEM education. Many organizations around the country, not just particularly here in San Antonio, but all around the world, typically will do a classroom-based and a little bit of hands-on. But it's really, in my humble opinion, the hands-on aspect that really engages and drives the initiative of the student. It gets them hooked. It really gives them that passion to continue forward. So, Mr. Oman, thank you for leading that endeavor in your organization. We look forward to partnering with you in the years ahead. And at this time, I'd like to invite you to come forward. So in recognition of the work you've done with J-STEM Academy, but more importantly for the lives you've helped enrich in STEM education for not just this past year, but for the prior years. And I speak for all of my counterparts and coworkers on the education committee, selection committee. Congratulations, and we look forward to working with you in the coming years. Sure.
This is a humbling thing for me to be on the stage with so many people here tonight, especially the Hall of Famers, Tuskegee Airmen, and a couple of the other key individuals I'll mention in a moment. The people that are Hall of Famers, that put planes up in the air, maintained them, piloted them by the thousands, made us safe and gave us liberty. It's very humbling. It's also humbling to be in charge of socializing and helping young students become contributing members of society. And it's that I face every day with great joy and reward. The students have been phenomenal. They're the real story. All the educators out here know that. We took them out on a walk this morning for an hour to a remote facility about a half mile away from the school. And we did that in preparation to practice for things that might happen bad at the school. And so it's a reminder just how precious our students are to us, and that we should be thankful every day that we can go forth and help the kids out. I want to thank the Academy, Mrs. Worley, the director, and I'd like to thank the foundation and all of you as contributors to it, because especially the middle schoolers are where the minds are still fertile, they're not jaded, and still malleable to where you can influence them and perhaps make them aviators, astronauts, and aerospace engineers. One further note, I didn't know until just a few moments ago that one of the 3 finalists was the daughter of the fellow who suggested that I take up tech education. I was a mathematics teacher. And it was about 3 weeks ago that I sent a note to them because I was so excited, because he was the guy that was at the root of having me be in a position where, unbelievable, as a child of a father who encouraged me to make things, to think about things, and having an education and a career in product design engineering that made those things fun, that I would end up in a position where not only is it valuable in today's world to have students do that, but their eyes and their brains light up with enjoyment and excitement to be able to do those things. And Armando Holguin was a colleague who said, Randy, you're a mathematics teacher, but you volunteered to help in our robotics program. You might like this. And so I took him up on it, and I've pursued it, and I've been doing it for many years now, and I'm the happiest duck in water at the JSTEM Academy. But when I sent that note to him, I had no idea that I might take the spot on the podium here from his daughter. And it's just an indication of how many great educators there are out here that could just as well have been up on this spot. Anna Holguin is phenomenal, and I assume that the other gentleman is as well, or the other woman is as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Randall, and congratulations to you. And thank you for your hard work. I have been married to a teacher for 30 years, and I know how hard the work is, but I know how fulfilling it is and how impactful it can be. So congratulations to you and all the teachers in the audience. How about a round of applause for all the teachers? All right, so now we're going to get on with the Hall of Fame portion. Hooray! We're all excited. We've got 4 fantastic inductees. And so now I'd like to ask Jim Perschbach to join me on the stage. He's going to help me with tonight's honorees. Jim is the Executive Vice President of Business Development at Port San Antonio. He provides strategic support to grow aerospace and other advanced technology businesses here at the port. As an attorney with over 18 years of legal experience, he has previously served as senior counsel for Bracewell and Giuliani LLP, where he worked alongside aerospace and other advanced manufacturing clients to help them achieve their growth plans. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, there's no other person that I know, maybe next to you, Wayne, that has as much passion for aerospace and understands the impact that the aerospace industry can have on people's lives than Jim Perschbach. Please join me in welcoming Jim Perschbach to the stage. Thank you, my friend. It's all yours.
Well, thank you so much. You know, there are folks who say that Wayne and I have a lot in common. We're both kind of tall, kind of goofy-looking lawyers who are involved in the aviation industry. And it's been said that you look at Wayne, and that's Jim in 20 years. And most days, I take that as a cautionary tale. But Wayne, I say this in all sincerity. It was your vision and your passion that recognized what made San Antonio what it is today. 100 102 years now, 108 years of aviation excellence. And it was your vision and your passion that got these folks together. And that is what makes San Antonio so special. And I look out at this room and I look at the aviation industry and the aerospace industry that we have in San Antonio, and I look at the Boeing company. And not only were they kind enough to take a young lawyer and put him on the payroll, but 20 years ago, when Kelly Air Force Base was being shuttered, the Boeing company took a flyer on us. And they took on 169 acres of this property and almost 2 million square feet without a contract and said, we're going to build a business. And today, there are a lot of folks working down there doing some amazing work. I look at our friends at Standard Aero, who said, we're going to take a flyer on seeing what we can do on engines in San Antonio. And they started working on engines that first came to this property in November of 1955. And they return those engines today, producing more power and more efficient than when they first rolled off the line. And just a few months ago, Standard Aero announced that they were going to triple the size of their footprint on this property. And then they announced they're bringing the RB11, the Rolls-Royce commercial engine, here to San Antonio. And again, going to employ hundreds of more people right here. I look at the education that we have in San Antonio. Hallmark University, one of the finest mechanic and technician training schools in this country, who trains young people not only for the work we do here in San Antonio, but all around the country. And speaking of training, not only is the Air Education and Training Command here, but on this property, the 433rd C5 Schoolhouse and the 149th, where they teach folks how to fly the F-16. And I could go on, and I won't, because you're not here to hear me. But it is a wonderful, wonderful history of aviation we have. Up at International Airport, and I know Russ Handy's here, not only is our airport batting above its weight in terms of air service development, it has consistently been ranked one of the finest airports in this country and just received an award as being the third best customer service of any airport out there in the world. Wayne, thank you for giving me the honor of representing the selection committee this year. And you're going to hate me because I'm not going to read what's written down here. I know we put a lot of care into writing this, but folks can read it. We have every year the unenviable challenge of trying to select from some of the greatest names in aviation, some well-known, some not well-known, who've come through San Antonio. And this year we have 4 folks who I think are really special. This is the 3rd year we've done this, and we have 4 really special folks. Our first honoree, Lieutenant Colonel James Robinson. I could tell you a lot of things about this man. I could tell you that he has a distinguished flying career. I could tell you that he is considered to be the expert on rated management development in the Air Force. But all that is not why he's up here. When he was first nominated to the selection committee, in the 3 years we've been doing this, we never got more seconds from the community. And when it was announced that he was going to be one of the honorees tonight, we never got more calls saying you guys were right. And they didn't talk about the fact that he's a great aviator. They didn't talk about the fact that he's a great educator. They talked about the fact that he's a wonderful human being, a great friend, and a great American. And because of that, it is our pleasure to induct Colonel James Robbie Robinson into the San Antonio Aviation and Aerospace Hall of Fame.
Great. Thank you. Well, I get waiting for them to make the phone call to tell me this was all a mistake, that it was really somebody else they had in mind. But I'm here, and I got it, so I guess they didn't. There's a lot I'd like to talk about, but I won't, simply because, as the people who've worked with me know, once I get started, it's hard to shut me up. But I do want to say a couple of things. One, I am overwhelmed by being thought well enough of to be nominated for this award. No awardee ever wins anything by himself. We don't operate alone. We're a team. For me, it's family, coworkers, and the leadership. I have been fortunate to see, because I've been here a long time, this marvelous parade of incredibly talented coworkers come through the headquarters of ATC, through the command in the ATC, to make a mission that I love dearly better. I have been blessed by outstanding senior leadership who gave this old guy an opportunity to do his thing, to listen, even when sometimes it wasn't what they'd hoped to hear or wanted to hear. It gave me an opportunity to be part of an institution that I started my relationship with 53 years ago, and I've never wanted to stop. As long as I'm surrounded with those kind of people and I have that kind of leadership that's part of this institution, we are going to be okay. I don't know if there's any way that I can put it in a short sentence or two. But I love what we do. I love the institution that I'm a part of. I've been so blessed to have been spent, as I said, over 53 years now working in that, as a part of that institution, living it. There's some times when I worry about it, but as long as we have people like we're in this room being part of it, promoting the business of aerospace, promoting our excellence in education. I was thrilled to hear about the award for education. That's where where our future is. So thank you so much. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for being a part of it. Thank you to all of you that I can't mention. It would take all night. But all of you know how much you've meant to me and have made this award possible. Thank you so much.
Our next honoree is a legend in San Antonio, and it's Edgar Tobin. And we know his name and we know his history. We know that he was trained by one of our past inductees, Ms. Stinson. But what he did that was really spectacular was Tobin aerial surveys, taking cameras up into the sky and applying that technology into new industries. And what that did was allow for the exploration of oil and gas throughout the state of Texas. The airplane, the camera, married together because of the vision of what Mr. Tobin brought us. And what's special about that, and you'll forgive me a point of personal privilege for the port, is this is something that is very near and dear to us today. Because as you look at the aerospace industry in San Antonio, and you look at San Antonio and our key industries, cybersecurity, intelligence, medical and bioscience, aviation and aerospace, it is the connection of those industries that is making something better than it is today. It is special. Mr. Tobin has done so much for San Antonio. To accept his award posthumously, please, Mr. Bugg.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much, and I want to also thank Wayne Fagan, but right at the very top. Wayne, thank you for remembering all the wonderful things that Edgar Tobin did during his life. And this is a great honor to remember the work that Edgar Tobin did, but think about Edgar Tobin was 18 years old when he basically enlisted in the United States Army. He had just graduated from TMI here in San Antonio, went over to France and was taught how to fly a plane. And as you were talking about Tobin aerial surveys, what really happened was, here's an 18-year-old that had a huge sense of wanting to learn and adventure, and I think about all the young children, the students that are in the audience tonight. So here's a man that was 18 years old, just graduated from essentially what we call high school, went on over to France to serve our country in World War I, learned how to fly, became the first ace from the state of Texas ever, and went on, and how he gained his knowledge about aerial photography was that he volunteered to fly the Army photographer over the enemy lines. As you remember famously about World War I, trench warfare was very prominent. So what he would do, he kind of thought it was fun. He'd just fly over the trenches. The Army photographer would lean out and take the photographs of the trenches below. That was high technology at the time. That was high technology. But he brought that idea back to San Antonio, and in 1927 he started Tobin Aerial Surveys, and it was kind of just by chance that Humble Oil Company, a couple engineers knew that he had experience in aerial photography, and they were trying to figure out how to put a bridge in between two mountains. And so he went over and did the aerial photography, and when the engineers saw the high resolution and the altitude that these things were taken at, they said, forget the bridge, we could use this in oil and gas exploration. So that's what gave life to Tobin Aerial Surveys, and then to bring it home of what a true patriot that Edgar Tobin was throughout his life. In World War II, the Tobin aerial mapping capabilities, downtown San Antonio, the building still stands on Camp Street. If you go down there today, you'll see burglar bars on the outside. The reason why you see those burglar bars on the outside is that Edgar Tobin, now a patriot in World War II, was a civilian aide in the United States Army with very famous General Hap Arnold. And he volunteered to allow the Army Air Corps to take over the Tobin Aerial Surveys, and they actually did the maps for the invasion of Sicily, Normandy, and what's not very well known is they did the maps for the invasion of Japan for World War II. That was all done right here in San Antonio, Texas, and it was possible only because Edgar Tobin had the adventurous spirit to learn how to fly, and did fly very well in World War I, learned about aerial photography, and it came back and served the United States of America very well in World War II. So I could go on and say many things, but I wanted to impart those three key components because there are so many young students in the audience, and hopefully that will kind of spark an idea that you're never too young to really take on the opportunity to serve your country. Thank you again.
Dr. James Burch. I am almost embarrassed to stand up here and try and introduce Dr. Burch. Dr. Burch is a San Antonio native. Went to school right here in San Antonio at Central Catholic and St. Mary's, got a graduate degree at Rice University, got another graduate degree at what I personally consider to be the finest university in this country, the George Washington University, which, by the way, in addition to graduating me, graduated Billy Mitchell, who may be a bigger name in aviation. Dr. James Burch's work is amazing. I'm not going to try and tell you what it is. But as I sat reading his Wikipedia page and reading about him on the internet, it struck me that perhaps his greatest accomplishment is that he oversees 350 scientists and engineers, many of whom have their own Wikipedia pages, many of whom are household names. And because of the work that Dr. Burch has done in Southwest Research, what started here as a dream really is one of the leading think tanks, one of the leading institutions for space research. Dr. Burch, you truly deserve this for the space portion of the aerospace industry. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank some people. First of all, my wife Kathleen's here, along with our son Charles, Kathleen's brother and his wife, and her sister Patty at the table. And we have a larger family as well in San Antonio and Houston. I'd like to thank the leadership of Southwest Research Institute. My two bosses are here, Adam Hamilton, Walt Downing, and my coworkers. We have 3 tables there, so a couple of dozen of my coworkers here that we just talked about, and especially Alan Stern. As you could see, he's a very inspirational and uplifting individual, and it's been a pleasure, and it's been very exciting to work with him for 25 years. So we want to keep it going forever. We have an exciting job. NASA has a wonderful space science program. And I could say we're the top space science institute in the world, and I believe it, but that would be hyperbole. But we're right up there. We have many missions to planets, many missions to the Earth. We have one of our spacecraft over here, Cygnus. It's the 8 spacecraft constellation. It's a hurricane hunting satellite. And we're doing a lot of different exciting things every day. It's exciting to go to work and rewarding. I want to thank everyone here, especially my family and coworkers. Thank you.
Our final honoree is somebody that many people in this room remember. It wasn't that many years ago that Kelly Aviation Center, which itself was something of an audacious idea, a joint venture, a public-private partnership between Tinker Air Force Base, Rolls-Royce, GE, Standard Aero, Lockheed Martin, was stood up to keep the engine work here in San Antonio. And along the way came a young vice president who was appointed president and general manager of the Kelly Aviation Center. And at the time, she seemed like just another San Antonio executive. But she had a vision. And she looked out and she saw a few things. One, she saw an aging workforce. And she realized that we need to revitalize the pipeline. And the program that we have here in San Antonio that has been nationally award-winning, the Alamo Area Academies, in conjunction with Alamo colleges, in conjunction with industry, was really her brainchild. It was something she put together. And today, when we go out trying to bring business to San Antonio, while there's not a community in this country that doesn't have an education problem, doesn't have a training problem, we can say with our heads held high, we don't know of a single aviation employer that has a problem filling their positions, and it's because of that program. She did something else that, for a guy who represented another blue and white logoed aerospace company, thought was pretty amazing. She managed to put together what she called the Aerospace Industry Council, an opportunity for the aviation industry and the aerospace industry here in San Antonio to get together and to realize that what was going on was larger than just a few companies. That became the Aerospace Committee of the San Antonio Chamber. It has become instrumental in attracting businesses to San Antonio. And pound for pound, dollar for dollar, and it's been this way for years, the per capita value of the aerospace and aviation industry in San Antonio is higher than any other industry. And the growth that we have in this industry is exponential. That young executive went on to do some better things when she left here, but she never forgot us. And today, in her position as chair and chief executive officer and president of the Lockheed Martin Corporation, we can say that Lockheed is still doing great things in San Antonio. Whether it's support of the AETC missions, whether it's support of the 433rd Schoolhouse, or frankly the new frontier in our aerospace and cyberspace world, the support of the 24th, 25th Air Force and the NSA Texas. What we have with Lockheed Martin and what we have in our industry today is in large part due to the work of our friend, Marillyn Hewson. And here to accept on her behalf, a friend to so many of us, Colonel Timothy Bounstrother.
Sadly, Marillyn couldn't make it today, but she sent a couple points she'd like me to convey to the group. First of all, Wayne, thanks for your leadership for the Dee Howard Foundation. It's an honor to be part of the Dee Howard Foundation, and Marillyn recognizes how much great work you and Dee Howard Foundation are making. She's very honored to be part of the induction class for 2018, and she wanted to make sure that everybody knew that. Thirdly, thanks to the teachers involved in STEM education in San Antonio and actually in the state of Texas, and more importantly, thanks to the students, because truly, you guys are the future, so stay with it. I'll go just a little off script here. She didn't tell me to tell you this, but being a part of Lockheed Martin, for her personal passion and her professional focus on STEM education, and not just STEM education, but how you take that into the future in a collaborative manner with the rest of her industry partner, is something that she conveys to us every single day. So with that, thank you very much on her behalf, and hope to get her in San Antonio here shortly. Thanks, Jim.
How about another round of applause for our 2018 inductees? Congratulations once again. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you've enjoyed tonight's program. I know that I have been personally touched by all the things that I've seen, I've heard, I've learned, and it has enriched me. And so I hope it's done the same for you, and I hope that you will go back to your respective businesses, to your respective homes, and share the good news of aerospace in San Antonio. The story really is a positive one, and it's a good one, and it has a trajectory that is going places that we all can help continue to build. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we stand adjourned. Thank you again for joining us.